Oh, wait, QTEs. Nice. So, what is Strayed Lights? Well, it's an indie action-adventure game made by French studio Embers in 2023. As a debut game, it apparently didn't do that well, which is unfortunate as their second game, Murky Divers, did pretty good in comparison. Like, look at those review numbers. So, is it unknown because it's not good? No, it's pretty good. Is it amazing? Let's break it down. On the Steam page, Strayed Lights is tagged as a Souls-like. Well, it might be, in the sense that you have to adapt to the moves of your opponent, and you have a dedicated dodge button, and you have the ability to fall to your death in a fight. Yo, wait, what? Oh my god. But other than that, not really. There's no equipments, stats, respawning enemies, or items, so it's not really a Souls-like. That being said, according to the director, the main gameplay is inspired by Sekiro's parrying mechanic, which is rather obvious when you look at it. As such, damage comes primarily from the player matching the enemy's colors, blue or orange, and parrying those strikes until it either reduces the enemy's standard health or fills up the parry meter for the boss. Once either condition is fulfilled, you can end the fight instantly by pressing a button. For those who fear this might be a challenging task, don't be. The attack patterns are easily telegraphed, you gain health back from every successful parry, and the actual timing itself is very generous. I was playing it on normal difficulty, and other than one of the bosses, which was giving out a lot of special effects due to its gimmick, I was able to beat the enemies easily as I played through the game. There are occasionally moves that are rather oddly telegraphed or just weirdly fast in a row that can catch you off guard, but adapting shouldn't be an issue. Huh. What's this move? What? How are you supposed to react to that? But while parrying can be nice, personally, it's kind of a slow way to play a game. You do have a basic attack, but it's very weak, and since the attack can't be cancelled out of immediately, a good parry is kind of encouraged over attacking. You can use it to do extra damage in the downtime between attacks, but the core gameplay is about waiting for something to happen, which kinda rubs me a bit in the wrong way. There is a skill tree here, but it is very small. Special abilities use up a limited resource that you get back on defeating enemies, but of the options you got, you only have the 3 here that you can switch around with on the fly. At the bottom of the skill tree are generic upgrades and moveset unlocks, but as you can see, there's not a lot of them. Most of these are unlocked through resources from story events and defeating enemies, but they don't change the gameplay dramatically, and as such, the game itself doesn't have much variety in combat. Enemy variety is also rather on the low end, with only about 5 enemy types. They can get stale as obstacles, but the bosses are the absolute standout, and they are a treat to fight as each incorporate a unique gimmick to them. Some of which I kind of wish the enemies themselves would start using, cause that would be interesting. Thing is, the game's short length pretty much guarantees you wouldn't really feel these observations as being an issue. The sense of fatigue in fighting the same enemies doesn't really settle in when you got cool bosses to fight in between, but it does create a sensation of only needing to play the game once to get the full experience. The first thing you're confronted with when you play the game is that it is beautiful. The framing of the cool colors and liberal usage of bloom in many of the areas leads to a consistently pretty atmosphere that you can get lost in. Enough so that I would be taken aback at just how nice an area looked whenever I was over a cliffside. If you took the Ori games and turned them 3D, this would be how I imagined it would look like. Also, the animations for the characters are nice. Enemy attacks are smooth and easily telegraphed, for the most part, and the color swapping for the enemies allow you to adjust quickly with a visual cue. The bosses, despite being huge behemoths, are fast, yet reactable due to this. It's not all perfect though, at least to me. One thing to note about the game, as I think you might have noticed, is that it is aggressively blue. In a game where you can color swap between blue and orange, the game primarily employs cool colors for its world design. This can create a weird scenario where you and the enemy, since you need to match colors to do damage, either stick out like a sore thumb or blend slightly with the environment. It's not often, as the game runs the whole gambit of cool colors for different places, but heck, even the loading screens are blue or purple. Like, it's a lot. Part of me thinks it's a story intentional decision, since there are some segments that are not blue on purpose, but that's interpretation at play there. Regardless, it's blue. Another thing is that despite praising the bloom earlier, some of the effects can be too much. I've noticed that in some sections of the game, the graphics can look washed out due to all the particle effects going on. I think it might have something to do with the blur, fog, or natural light effects, but yeah, something's off about it that makes it look muddy. For the most part though, the game looks gorgeous. Each area goes through the classics of having a fantasy style game, from caverns, open fields, horizons, but each shot can easily become a wallpaper in someone's desktop, and I have to commend whoever the art designers are as they nailed it out of the park. The music of Strayed Lights is subtly infused. Many of the tracks in the game don't call out to themselves to distract you from walking around this mostly empty world, which fits the somber yet hopeful atmosphere of the game. This is appropriate since the person who made the music for this game is Austin Wintory, composer for Journey, Banner Saga, and Apsu. So yeah, totally in his wheelhouse. The music does kick up during combat, which are epic in scale as expected. Personally, while I think the tracks are nice enough, I do think the combat tracks could hit a little harder as the game is more directly combat focused than many of Austin's other works. Take that with a grain of salt, as I suspect I'm projecting my feelings from the passive gameplay behavior I mentioned before onto the music. Environmentally, there is a lot of thought put into each zone. The sounds of the winds going through the caverns, the ambient waterfalls, it's all very immersive. However, I'm not a big fan of the combat sound design. Maybe I'm spoiled with other parries, but the combat sounds in the game don't have a big oomph to them. I think something is done to make them sound flat on purpose to make sure it doesn't clash with the music playing, but I don't know, something feels lacking. Since every enemy in the game is bigger than you, when you're deflecting these hits, it seems a bit odd to have a parry be so soft sounding. It's the main noise that you hear when you're fighting, so it being not that impactful, to me anyway, is kind of disappointing. There is a story, yes, but all of it is inference as there's no dialogue in the game. It's even used as a selling point on their Steam page. As such, I can't really make a definitive comment on the story. Does it mean it's bad? Not really. I mean, I get the gist of it, I think. From my perspective, there's a theme going on here about not losing yourself to fears, but since the game is rather short, if you're interested in it, I recommend trying it out for yourself and seeing what kind of story you get out of it. It's not enough to get me super interested in this world, but the premise it presents itself as is enough for me to go explore the other zones. For video games, that's often enough. Okay, so this game is very clearly meant for a more casual audience. One parry regained enough health for like 2 to 3 hits of damage, which means it would require messing up constantly to die in a normal playthrough. Even if you're not the same color as the enemy when you parry, you negate any damage you would have taken. For those looking for a challenging experience, you won't get it through the normal mode. Apparently this is kind of a known thing, as of playing, there are multiple difficulty options. So if you find the normal mode to be too easy, intense would be a good test of your skills. Enemy patterns are changed to be less predictable and require more memorization, plus there is a trial mode for those who want to test themselves. I admittedly got wrecked trying to do the trial mode for a second, so it might be fun if you really want to have a go at the game's mechanics. I mean, I'm not going to fault the game for being less difficult when it's an intentional decision. That being said, I do have some issues for the game that do need to be addressed. For one, this game still has some bugs. Once, I quit the game and then tried to continue only to just crash immediately, which I know a lot of indie Unreal games have this problem. My PC is not bad, and I was playing on ultra settings, but I have noticed that sometimes the game will just chug for no discernible reason, and that's unfortunate. Also, sometimes the bosses and player shadow effects just kind of fly out of them. Just visual bugs that can happen randomly at times. Apparently it used to be worse, as I'm playing after a post-optimization patch. So if this is the best it can turn out, I guess we just take it as it is. These aren't game-breaking bugs, but the total playtime is so short that it feels more like an issue than it would be otherwise. There's also some aspects of the game I'm just not a fan of. For one, the platforming can be hit or miss. I find myself slipping and sliding all over the place, and the jump is a very low one that really was only meant for moving forward and not up. Easy to access places just won't be possible because you can't jump up at all. It's not like anything is behind hard to platform places, but it is part of the game, so I have to address that. On a related note, the hub areas are big. It's so big that it's great as a set piece, but navigating through it can take a long time when you're looking through every nook and cranny. It might not have taken much time to find the collectibles, but it surely felt like it. And the bad jumping problem feels real worse on situations like these. The zones don't require a map as they are straightforward, but more than anything, I wish there was a tracker to see how many energy orbs there are in an area. Unless I missed it entirely, I don't see one, so it's a shame I can't get the attuned achievement since I just straight up couldn't tell I missed one to begin with. That's not great when I want to get stronger, especially when backtracking consists of just going through a mostly empty area. Also, shout out to this horned gorilla thing. He charges all the time but doesn't take a lot of damage from parrying his normal attacks. They don't combo much, so it's just one hit, charge, 2 hits, charge. It's like the only one where I have to actively attack it in order to beat it because he just spams unparryables all the time. Also, what's with the random water? You just drown when you go into it, but you last long enough to make you believe something's worth it, or you might get an ability to travel through it? I don't know, it seems like an odd decision that didn't really pay off. Okay, enough of that. Here's the thing, the game's good. Would I recommend it? Yes. What I described are annoyances, yes, but the core is very solid. Ultimately, the visual design is gorgeous, the boss battles are engaging, and it's very short, so it's a more curated experience. I think it's fun overall, and they executed the concept they want to focus on great. Could it use some more polishing and depth? Probably, but we take what we get. If you want a short action-adventure game in a very pretty environment, Strayed Lights has you covered. So, it's good. Go get it whenever you feel like. Possibly on sale, cause it really is short.